Hey guys, today we'll be continuing the rare loot saga in Project Zomboid's Build 42. At this point, I've survived the worst of it, maybe. My base is secure, I have weapons, and I have loot. But the real issue remains food insecurity. Now, picking up on the 1st of August, I went back down to the trailer parks in search of food and other goodies, but the haul was pretty light and there was no generator magazine this time. So it was back to work on the old watch disassembly line. And on the 3rd, I spent some more time in the car lot there, leveling up my welding skill. Someday it's gonna pay off, right? Right? Maybe? Probably not. All right. Now, by the 4th, I made it out of the trailer park, but food continued to elude me. But not the Zeds. I made the mistake of killing a couple of Zeds outside of a home, and then the starving zombies effect took things from there. And for the rest of that day, I would be juggling breaking weapons, exhaustion, and the resting needs of my Build 42 anti-hero. And when I finally extricated myself from that situation, I decided I would take a lovely nighttime drive past the hordes occupying the freeway of northern Muldraugh, as they like to do. Now, in the old days, by the old days I mean the Build 41 days, this rabble could have been cleared out with the shotgun and a few boxes of shells. But it is a new dawn in Knox County. It's honestly a brutal dawn, and I'm fucking dying out here, man. I'm fucking dying here. Anyway, the only real significant ammo source in this fucking shithole called Muldraugh is the police station, which is on the other side of Muldraugh. And all these Zeds and more stand between me and it. So yeah, this really isn't going to be a gun run until I can get there. But for now, in my immediate future, I will primarily be dedicated to fighting my way into a nearby fenced and gated neighborhood. The only problem is, as it turns out, there is probably just as many Zeds there as were on the highway. Anyway, the hostilities would begin on the 5th when some stupid backpack Zed would wander into the street, happening to be transporting a couple boxes of ammo, which would bait me into risking my life just to retrieve it. That's how desperate I was. On the plus side of things, though, I gained more ammo, and back at home, for once, my refrigerator was almost looking stocked. I also had a bottle of ketchup in reserve for when things got really bad. But the war for the gated neighborhood would begin in earnest the following day, and now that I had a box of shells, I was able to bring out the heavy artillery. Or so I thought I was. In point of fact, the Spaz shotgun isn't as powerful as I would have thought it was. But that's okay, because what I lacked in firepower, I made up with unintentional cleverness by parking my van in the street and leaving it running. It worked as a distraction that broke up the hordes. On the flip side, though, each and every time I wanted to leave and I approached the van for the rest of that day, it was surrounded by a fresh batch of Zeds. So I spent the day covering the fence line in blood and corpses, and then, to my surprise, found that the farmhouse kitchen was stocked with even more ammunition. So back at home, I decided to read up on welding and cooked an assload of eggs. And I gotta say, once you figure out the chickens and the chicken coops, there really is a lot of food just laying around. But at the time of this playthrough, you could eat about an infinite amount of eggs without gaining weight. So the benefits of all those eggs laying around were kind of limited to me. Anyway, on the 7th, I apparently decided to take a day off, but by the 8th, I had slipped into the gated neighborhood under the cover of foggy weather. The houses weren't all that stocked, unfortunately, but just as a heads up for all you metalsmiths out there, if you've ever had trouble finding tongs, you can usually find them in the fireplaces of homes like these. Anyway, the looting spree was cut relatively short when I noticed that the Zeds had begun to encroach on my position. And then I made things worse by bringing out the guns. In Build 42, guns really cause more problems than they solve, especially early on, and especially as the devs continue to update the game. Anyway, this day happened to dissolve into something of a clown fiesta, as I would once again be forced back all the way to my original fence line, where that pile of corpses had finally dissolved into nothingness. And of course, I would become fatigued and tired. So, in the end, I ran all the way home to sit on my perfectly handcrafted bench. Damn, that's fucking nice. And then checking in on the weight situation, I happened to be a happy and healthy 77 pounds, but I was falling. Anyway, I really don't like getting bullied by Zeds, so the next day, it was on. But when I showed up to the combat zone first thing in the morning, I found it overran with more of these Zed bastards. So I used the shotgun from Terminator 2 for a little bit, because it's pretty dope. And to be honest, I was probably saying hasta la vista to myself, but that's not something I would ever repeat. I would never repeat in my voiceover for my video something as cringe as hasta la vista, baby, while I voice over for my twirly shotgun zomboid killing spree. Never. Anyway, here's an interesting thing about the Starving Zombies mod, in case you're interested in it. There is a lot of zombies around, and I'm using a loud-ass shotgun, but I'm not getting swarmed, as you may have noticed. And it's because half the zombies are stopping to eat other zombies, and they can hear the shotgun, but they happen to be preoccupied by eating lunch. So in reality, the Starving Zombies mod is supposed to be a challenge mode mod, and the truth is it does make certain things more challenging, but it also makes other things easier. In the end, it's really more of a double-edged sword than anything. Anyway, back to the action. And look at those cat-like reflexes and single mother-like hearing. I must have eyes in the back of my head. By the way, there is a mod for 360-degree vision in Build 41. I don't think it's out for Build 42 yet, though. Now, that mod is kind of like cheating, but I do think it's better for the aesthetics of the game and also recording the game. But obviously, it removes the threat of being snuck up on. But if you're into that kind of thing, look up 360-degree vision on the workshop. Anyway, I know I was just saying that the Starving Zombies mod kind of makes horde management easier, but this whole situation is a good example of how Starving Zombies prolongs fights. They just become endless because the Zeds will flock to dead bodies from like really far away. But if you have a nice fence corner to fight around like I did here, you can really rack up the kills and also stack up the bodies in an easy to loot pile. That's called efficiency. And I guess I'll mention here that all this fighting helped me get closer to my relationship with anorexia and even gave me muscle strain. But I really can't stop now because it's barely noon. And now it's time for the token 1 spear, 1 kill moment. That's good shit. And I kind of forgot this, but I had been forced to leave my van out here like the day before, so I think that's why I was so adamant about fighting my way back into that neighborhood, because I wanted my van back. So adamant, in fact, that even though I had broken all of my weapons and was now using a carving fork to continue the fight, I just kept going. Anyway, I did finally get the van back and took it home. And then I did what I could, which isn't much, to reverse my weight loss situation. But in build 42, let's just say that the calorie system is really fucking out of whack, okay? It's really out of whack. You can eat ice cream like all day, every day, and barely gain a pound. But if you eat meat and vegetables every day, you're gonna be underweight in like a week. Even if you're like not missing meals and overeating, you're still going to be losing weight. Now, if only the Indie Stone could apply that sort of balance to real life, like we would all be fucking set. It'd be great. Indie Stone, if you're listening, please bring your sense of nutrition balance to real life. You would help so many people. All right. Anyway, the clown show that was the fight for that gated neighborhood wouldn't end there, and of course I would use more guns, and of course even more Zeds would show up here, and of course I would run away from the neighborhood again. But on the 11th, I would finally finish looting the neighborhood and chow down on the final salami and weigh in at a miserable 75 pounds. But on the plus side of things, I was still averaging close to 100 kills a day, which is pretty good, all things considered. But all that being over and done with, I earned myself a generator. Yay. But I honestly couldn't really celebrate that little victory because it would be that night that I would finally actually totally lose the weight management battle and gain the underweight trait. Now, the underweight trait is bad for a few reasons. One of them being that you're less combat effective. You fatigue more easily and swing your weapon slower. It's not ideal. Also, you are more likely to trip over fences, which for a fence fighter like me is no bueno. And as an aside, this whole playthrough has really been entirely dependent on fence fighting. Anyway, I was now officially what you might call desperate. So desperate, I would do something I never thought in a million years I would ever do. That's right. I murdered a pig in cold blood. And that son of a bitch was pretty fucking heavy. He came in at a whopping 46 encumbrance, or whatever that means. I don't know what that means, but he was so heavy or so encumbering, I couldn't put him in my trunk because for some reason, I guess because of realism. So instead, I rode home with him in my lap because realism? Yeah, realism. Because of realism, I rode home with him in my lap. Anyways, I was also too poor for a butchering hook, so I had to cut the pig on the ground. And I happened to get a good deal of meat off of him, which wasn't natural, at least not to build 42, because I was using the rebalanced butchering mod, and I'd recommend that too if you'd like meat, although at this time the Indie Stone may or may not have rebalanced butchering for themselves. I honestly am not too sure. Anyway, after that, it was time, of course, to cook. Jesse, we have to cook. And also to pound food. And it was funny because I had eaten ice cream earlier, and it still took like 3 meat stews before I reversed the weight loss trend. But a couple more stews and 1 burnt roast later, I was double tick marked up and on my way out of weight deficiency. But this is a good time to check in. We're 1 month in, we've killed 3,000 zombies, and we're just barely getting enough to eat. But anyway, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. Actually, one more thing before I go. And no, not the text on the screen, but I want to give a big shout out to Santiago Flo for being the first channel member. That's a huge and exciting milestone, kind of fist pumping the air type shit. So thank you, Santiago Flo, for joining the channel. I appreciate it. Anyways, now I'm out. Peace.